I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Alexander, let's talk about Brexit. We did a live stream on this the other day where we talked about the UK Supreme Court's decision against Boris Johnson. And we have some news which it looks like it clarifies the situation now as we head towards October 31st, the so-called Brexit deadline. Jeremy Corbyn's speech was a dud. Boris Johnson, on the other hand, was on fire. Correct or not correct? Break it down for us, Alexander, these two speeches, and also break down what the last, essentially, day and a half shows with Brexit and the Brexit October 31st deadline.
Absolutely. Now, let's just go back a step and say what happened at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court says that Boris Johnson's prorogation of Parliament until the 14th of October is unlawful and required Parliament to reconvene. And Parliament reconvened. And I made the point very clearly that I don't agree with this judgment. I think this judgment is fundamentally wrong. And by the way, more and more members of the legal community are now coming out and saying so. It has completely shifted the boundaries of the British Constitution in ways that are frankly dizzying and leave us all very uncertain about where things are going. But anyway, that was its effect. And I made the point, that as a result of this extraordinary decision, which has torn out the British Constitution and left us in a political crisis, all the Remainers have actually achieved is that they've got themselves 6 more days of parliamentary time. And I said during our live, it wasn't clear to me what they proposed to do with these 6 days of parliamentary time, because the Ben Letwin law, which obliges Boris Johnson to ask for an extension, another Brexit extension, if he can't get a deal before Brexit Day on the 31st of October, is already law. And it's very difficult to see what the Remainers can do over and above and beyond that if they persist in opposing a general election and if they persist in opposing any attempt to bring the government down through a vote of confidence. And, I was wondering whether Jeremy Corbyn, who is after all the leader of the opposition, would be able to come forward and propose some sort of plan going forward. And he delivered a speech to the Labour conference which said nothing. It didn't say that there would be an election. He didn't support an election. He didn't support a vote of confidence against Boris Johnson to bring the government down. He didn't actually propose anything. His speech was just a collection of cliches. He did say that Boris Johnson should resign, but he didn't give any reason why Boris Johnson should be forced to resign. I mean, he didn't say, if Johnson doesn't resign, we will call a vote of confidence in him. So, of course, that was a dud. Now, Boris Johnson, by contrast, having, I think, got a sense that the Remainers' bluff, in a sense, has been called, came along to the House of Commons, and for the first time since he was Prime Minister, he was on fire. And he said to them, I don't agree with this Supreme Court judgment. I think the Supreme Court judgment is wrong. I'm not apologising for anything I did for proroguing Parliament. I think that was entirely the correct decision. I think, this decision is wrong. I will abide by it. I will accept it. That doesn't mean I will agree with it. And if you think that I shouldn't be Prime Minister, either go for an election or pass a vote of no confidence in me. I'm prepared to give you the time to do it. And the Remainers, the Labour Party, the Liberal Party, the Scottish Nationalist Party, none of them were prepared to do that. So, in a sense, what has happened after all the furore and fire of the last couple of days is that, politically speaking, Boris Johnson actually looks, if anything, slightly stronger, or in fact, a great deal stronger than he looked a week ago after Parliament, as we thought, had been prorogued.
What a change of events in just a 24-hour time span. I mean, it looked like the UK Supreme Court had buried Johnson and had buried Brexit. And where Corbyn seemed to have had some leverage going into this, it's almost like he ceded ground and he completely just recoiled
Yes.
and fell in on himself. I mean,
Yes,
so and Boris capitalized. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I mean, he ran riot over them. I mean, he absolutely steamrolled them. You can watch it. It's all televised. I mean, I must make the point here. They don't want an election because they know that if there was an election now, or rather they fear if there was an election now, Boris Johnson and the Conservatives would win it, because Boris Johnson and the Conservatives say they want a Brexit to happen on the 31st of October, deal or no deal. And as of this moment in time, that is the policy that commands the most support. So they don't want an election for that reason. They don't want a vote of no confidence that would bring Boris Johnson down either, because they cannot agree on an alternative prime minister. I come back to what I have said many times. The obvious, in fact, the only logical alternative prime minister is Jeremy Corbyn. He is the leader of the opposition. The Liberal Democrats won't support him, and neither will the Conservative Remainer rebels. So, in a sense, what has just happened is that the weakness of the Remainers, their political weakness, has been exposed. They can pull strings. They can get courts to make decisions. They can pass votes in the House of Commons, but they won't actually take power. And one has to wonder, what the point of all that battle to get Brexit, the prorogation overturned, was, if they're not able to do anything with that victory.
Yeah, we said during the live stream that the way the Remainers can actually delay Brexit and kill Brexit would be for them to just accept a Corbyn prime ministership. I mean, that would have been the most logical way forward in order to just completely shut Brexit down. But it looks like the Remainers have now shown their cards. They won't accept a Corbyn as prime minister. Yes. So that leaves Boris Johnson now to do what? To go with a no-deal Brexit on October 31st, or to bring back, as we said in our live stream, to bring back May's wretched withdrawal agreement.
We don't. It's impossible at this moment.
I mean, are those the next moves? Am I summarizing it correctly?
You're summarizing it entirely correctly. All the indications are that Boris Johnson is going to remain Prime Minister up to and beyond Brexit Day on the 31st of October. So ultimately now it is up to him. He has, in effect, called the Remainers' bluff. I mean, they've passed this law, but it's not obvious what they're going to do, because it seems that they are as hostile to the idea of a Corbyn government or a general election as they are to a no-deal Brexit.
That's the impasse. So, Corbyn was the impasse.
He is the impasse, and I mean, there's no indication that he's prepared to step aside. There's some talk that, there's some pressure on him to do so, but quite rightly, in my opinion, he's refusing to. Can I just say something about Corbyn? Corbyn wants Brexit. I've said this many times. I mean, I have followed Jeremy Corbyn's career for something like 30 years. He is somebody who viscerally doesn't like the EU and would prefer Britain to leave the EU, because he knows that inside the EU Britain he cannot carry out this major reform program in Britain, the socialist reform program that he wants. He cannot, or he's afraid to say that, because his party are overwhelmingly Remainers. I should stress by his party, I mean the membership of the party and the parliamentary party, not the people who vote Labour, of whom around 40% voted Leave. So he actually, in truth, is not going to really fight Boris Johnson between now and the 31st of October. He will go along with all the other Remainer plots, but ultimately, because he wants to be Prime Minister, ultimately, his heart is not in this battle, which is why he produced this very, very flat speech at the Labour conference. It's one reason he produced it. The trouble is, the other parties and the Remainers within the Labour Party have no plan, because they don't want him Prime Minister. And in fact, there were some extraordinary scenes. There were some MPs, Labour MPs, begging Boris Johnson, to dial down his rhetoric, because they were saying that some of their constituents are now so angry with them that they're receiving death threats. And strikingly, Boris Johnson refused to heed that. So it seems to me that we've gone from one day when it looked as if Boris Johnson was on the ropes to another day when Boris Johnson looks, as I said, stronger than he's looked for several weeks. It's such an upside down world here in Britain that it's very, very difficult to keep up with events carefully and to analyse them properly.
Alexander, before we end this video, I'm going to keep pressing. What do you think the next steps are? Is it May's withdrawal agreement?
Yes.
Or is it a no-deal Brexit?
Yes, this depends.
Or no one knows.
No one knows. I mean, perhaps Boris Johnson has some plan. I mean, he is constantly saying that he will abide by the Ben Letwin law, but there are rumours that he's planning to find some way of not doing so and to go, in effect, for a no-deal Brexit. I mean, no one knows. I mean, really no one knows.
If he goes for a no-deal Brexit, sure. Is that illegal, given the UK Supreme Court decision?
No, right. The Supreme Court decision was not about that, but it does give an indication of the thinking of the courts. However, I come back to what I said before. Let us assume that Boris Johnson breaks the law and doesn't do what the Ben Letwin law says. What, in practice, do the Remainers do? It's not a criminal offence to break the Ben Letwin law. It's not a crime. This isn't a part of the law, the criminal codes of England. Is he charged with contempt of Parliament? Do they really intend to send the leader of the Conservative Party, the Prime Minister, the person who's carrying out the will of 17.4 million people, to prison for contempt of Parliament? I don't think so. So Boris Johnson has more cards to play if he's prepared to play them. I'm not sure that he is. And Nigel Farage, who knows him, is very suspicious of him. I don't know. I can't really say, because Boris Johnson is never an easy man to read.
Suspicious that he's going to bring back the May withdrawal agreement? Is that where Farage's suspicions lie?
Farage has absolutely said that. And some of the negotiations that are going on at the moment with the EU do rather suggest this. That certainly seemed to be the direction things were taking in the days leading up to the Supreme Court decision. But having said that, as I said, the situation has changed now. We've now had a situation where Boris Johnson has gone to the House of Commons, confronted his opponents, found that they have no backbone, no real stomach for a battle, called their bluff, if you like. And so he's possibly got more space to maneuver in than seemed to be the case a few weeks ago. Be a great paradox if the effect of the Supreme Court judgment was to strengthen him rather than to weaken him politically.
Finally, Alexander, when do you expect to get more clarity as to which way Boris Johnson is going to go? What should we be waiting for? Is there anything which we should be waiting for? When are we going to start to finally see some light here at the end of the tunnel as far as where this whole process is going to end up?
Right. I mean, I'm going to guess that things are going to start looking extremely ugly around the 14th of October. I mean, it's going to be as late as that. The European Council is due to meet on the 16th of October. There's supposed to be the Conservative Party conference later this month. I think they will go ahead. I think we're going to see another prorogation of Parliament within a few days, by the way, so which will be, even by the Supreme Court's judgment, will be lawful. So we're going to see a prorogation of Parliament, a Queen's speech on the 14th of October, outlining the government's legislative programme, and we will have Boris Johnson going to the European Council. I think I'm right in saying on the 16th of October. So that's where I think we will begin to see exactly where everything is falling into place, whether Boris Johnson is going to push for a no-deal Brexit, even if that involves breaking the Ben-let-win law, or at least twisting it, or if he's going to try and negotiate a deal, which, to be very clear, will be Theresa May's deal. We will see what he will do.
All right, Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click the subscribe button down below. Click on the notifications bell to make sure we get notifications every time we push out a new video. And remember to get an audio copy of this video. Follow us on iTunes and on Soundcloud. The link to those platforms is in the description box down below. And also donate to the Duran. Help keep this channel going and help keep this channel growing. PayPal, Patreon, and Subscribestar. You will find those links in the description box as well. And another thing that helps keep this channel growing and moving is when you decide to purchase some of our magic shirts or magic mugs, like the magic mug that Alexander has right there, which I think will improve your Brexit IQ by a whole lot.
It will improve it prodigiously. I mean, it's what enables me to keep going with this interminable story and all its endless intricacies. I mean, Brexit, frankly, would make most people's brains melt if they had to follow it as carefully as I have to do. So the reason I'm able to keep going like this is because I drink tea from these majestic, marvelous, beautiful magic mugs that the Duran produces. 15 ounces, perfect porcelain, beautifully made, strong, light to carry, beautifully crafted. This one has the badge of the Russian Federation, which is a double-headed eagle, not to be confused with the double-headed eagle of the Duran, which is actually quite different. Our double-headed eagle points to east and west. But these are marvelous mugs. They're, I think, the best coffee mugs I've ever seen. And, you know, I've drunk from lots of coffee mugs in my time, and our viewers love them also. Those who have bought them are hugely impressed by them. And they're also impressed by our amazing shirts, which are 100% cotton, beautifully dyed, incredibly smart. They're short sleeved, some of them, like this one. We've got long sleeve T-shirts also, which are great for cold, wet, rainy weather like we get in England. We've also got polo shirts. We've got hoodies. Hoodies very necessary in the English climate. We've got stickers. We've got hats. Hats are also very necessary in the English climate too, but also many other climates also, can I say. We've got great things on our shop, which Alex has been refreshing and improving. We've broadened our range of merchandise. We've got 2 amazing books on Russiagate. We've got a very fine book on Brexit, all of which we're going to have to update very soon because so much is going on in these stories. And of course, we've also got, you know, all this amazing stuff, but competitors who are trying to copy it. And they're producing very bad copies of it. So come to our shop and buy the originals. Help us, help the Duran, help yourself by owning real, original Duran merchandise. Alex will tell you how to do.
In the description box below, you will see a link to the Duran shop, theduranshop.com. Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran, thank you very much. Until next time, everybody, take care.